defender of the Tea Party. I was truly a believer. These were my people. I walked through the crowd and I spoke to many of the speakers, to a group of veterans congregated together and enthusiastically cheering, to housewives, to African Americans, to Hispanics, all sorts of people, all of whom had the same sense that the American people had finally awakened. For the longest time, the left used activism and media to create the perception that they were a larger subsection of the American experience than they actually are. It was a smoke and mirrors game that the right allowed to stand unchallenged for way too long. By standing up for the Tea Party, by refusing to back down, by becoming one with them, I made it my mission to show the country that the Tea Party was a worthy grassroots conservative movement and that the left was a corrupt political amalgam dominated by astroturfing organizations dedicated to the destruction of the country as we know it. That mission made me a target. The organized left, my stated enemy, saw me as a threat that needed to be destroyed, not just because I helped to take Acorn down, but because I started to recognize that we now had the tools to expose the left for what it is, a tightly connected group of unions and special interest groups backed by George Soros and PR flacks paid for by Soros, like Media Matters and Organizing for America and motivated media allies like the Huffington Post, quite a Frankenstein I created there, huh? And, well, the entire mainstream media generally. In order to take down the organized left, I needed to shine a light on the organized left. And that was exactly what we did consistently throughout 2009 and 2010, which was one of the reasons why the Tea Party won. The election of 2010 and, to a lesser degree, the off-year elections of 2009 acted as a confirmation that our message was getting through and that it wasn't just me alone and the big bloggers alone that started to get the message and disseminate it. New and social media were the tools that the Tea Party would use to fight back and circumvent its well-funded mainstream media detractors. The handheld video camera became the star of the new media and the biggest weapon against the once protected left's tactics of intimidation. Even though the networks mostly ignored the video footage that we collected, footage of the soon-to-be-defeated Congressman Bob Etheridge, Democrat from North Carolina, attacking a citizen, footage of an Organizing for America member and Democratic Party official calling me gay at an Organizing for America-sponsored Stop the Hate rally, footage of ralliers at a Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee / Organizing for America / former Pelosi staffer-created event portraying Sarah Palin, Glenn Beck, and Adam Kinzinger as Nazis. We took the moral high ground and took away the left's tactics that had for so long been indulged and protected by the mainstream media. Our success forced a wedge between the mainstream media and the organized left, making it so they could no longer, without consequence, protect the progressive political alliance. In less than 2 years, I felt more allied to the Tea Party than to the GOP. That sentiment is clearly shared by millions, and it now serves as a warning to the Republican establishment that the people are back in charge and on high alert. Lessons from the election. I knew a few key things going into the 2010 congressional midterms. I knew that the Tea Party wasn't just a political movement. It had become an existential and a cultural movement. It had moved beyond politics and into the realm of everyday life for Americans who weren't separating their political viewpoints from their viewpoints on life anymore. Freedom wasn't just freedom to vote, it was freedom to live, and that need for freedom crossed all cultural, racial, and political boundaries. After doing so many Tea Parties, it became obvious that strong-willed and educated women were leading the charge. In very few cases did I see men running things. This narrative, virtually untold by the media, is nevertheless self-evident when one sees how Sarah Palin and Representative Michelle Bachmann are tops in Tea Party popularity. It's the Mama Grizzly factor. And the more award-winning, feminist-neutral, objective, super-media woman Katie Couric sneers at them, the more powerful they become. While the media expended billions of dollars trying to label the Tea Party as racist, Lieutenant Colonel Allen West and Tim Scott made history as Tea Party-endorsed congressional victors, both from the South. Perhaps their leadership skills and public stature will undo the negative branding of conservatives as racists. As I stated to the Unity rally in Philadelphia, this country and its founders' ideals will not survive until all culturally Marxist subgroupings, race, gender, sexual orientation, embrace e pluribus unum, one from many. Significantly, when the impact of the Tea Party on the election was discussed on election night and thereafter, the racism meme had all but vanished. The fight against the N-word lie was dirty and ugly, but in the end we won and protected the reputation of the Tea Party. A huge victory. I also understood, despite the media's getting it predictably oh so wrong, that the Tea Party wasn't merely a tool of the Republican Party. Many of the people I knew in the Republican Party, people who were longtime allies, reacted with fear and defensiveness with the rise of the movement that would, ironically, grant conservatism relevance and put it on offense where it always belonged. Many of those friends should heed the lessons of the 2010 midterms. At its core, the Republican Party suffers from whipped dog syndrome. Its every word and policy is shaped by a defensiveness against its master, and its master is less Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi than it is the mainstream media. Case in point, the last standard-bearer of the Republican Party was the defeated presidential candidate John McCain. McCain spent an entire political career cozying up to the media power structure in Washington, New York, and Hollywood. Then, when he finally ran, expecting that he would be treated with dignity and respect for capitulating on core conservative principles, the media treated him like a mutt. The Tea Party no longer wants to associate itself with this self-hating branch of the Republican Party. The GOP better know now not to trot out Senators Susan Collins and Olympia Snowe to placate their media masters. Second, I knew that November 2nd was a less important day for the movement than November 3rd was. The question was whether this once-in-a-lifetime awakening of conservatism would sustain itself. It's an open question. That's why I'm committed over the next 2 years to doing everything to keep that movement alive and trying to focus it on the right targets. And the most important target? You guessed it, the mainstream media. And it is going down, slowly but most surely. Its decline is evidenced by George Soros's last-minute pre-election cash infusion into NPR, $1.8 million, and Media Matters, $1 million. The MSM is so weak that its existing infrastructure needs to be buffered by a destructive anti-American individual in order to ensure that even more ground isn't lost. To his credit, Soros understands that controlling the narrative is key, and media do that much better than the politicians, especially in the 21st century, a hypermedia age. If the Tea Party made life miserable for individual congressmen simply by asking them basic questions like, "Will you read the bill?" or "Do you support Obama's agenda?" and causing so much dismay and turmoil and consternation, what results can be wrought if the Tea Party brings its energy and tactics to bear on the media, which are even more vulnerable and corrupt and hypocritical than the Democratic Party they serve? The year 2011 is the perfect time for the Tea Party to begin focusing on both local and national media and show that they can act as a check and balance against the media's natural tilt to the left. The Tea Party can show the mainstream media that if they don't clean up their act, they'll go the same way as the House Democrats in 2010. If you thought Democratic politicians were ham-fisted in responding to their constituents' concerns, imagine blow-dried reporters and Ivy League newsroom know-it-alls exposed to the YouTube light of day. My third thought going into the election was a personal one related to my place in the media and political order. I noticed that in many pieces by the objective mainstream media, I was described as ultra-conservative or uber-conservative. but I bet these people can't even tell you what my position is on most political issues. Were they intentionally marginalizing me by calling me uber and ultra-conservative without any clue that I voted for Proposition 19, which was an attempt to legalize marijuana in California? Were they labeling me in order to discredit me without even finding out that my agnostic sensibilities cause me to waver on the tectonic issue of gay marriage? And then I realized that it didn't matter how they labeled me. At the end of the day, I know I'm not an aspiring political pundit, that I don't consider my voice any greater than my neighbor's voice, that my opinion on gay marriage is no more important than that of someone who is gay and is in a committed relationship, and that my thoughts on marijuana legalization are no more important than those of an Orthodox Jew who has a deep problem with illegal drugs. I understood that if anybody thinks that my mission is to become another person you see on TV or hear on radio pontificating, "It's my way or the highway" on such matters, they've completely missed my point. I intentionally co-created the Huffington Post in order to grant the hard left a place in the blogosphere to express itself. I knew that in the future I wanted to provide a similar platform for citizen journalists who relate more to my way of thinking on the center-right, on the side of individual freedoms and individual liberties and individual rights over group rights, group thinking, and categorizing people into racial, gender, and sexual orientation categories only then to pit them against one another. I co-created the Huffington Post and the big sites as part of a grander strategy to knock down the false edifice that is the mainstream media, that is built upon the false proposition of objective journalism and the grotesque anti-American proposition of political correctness. My mission isn't to quash debate. It's to show that the mainstream media aren't mainstream, that their feigned objectivity isn't objective, and that open, rigorous debate is a positive good in our society. Man, how I long for the days of Sam Kinison, Richard Pryor, Abby Hoffman, Dr. Hunter S. Thompson, George Carlin, and Lenny Bruce. Today, the only people upholding their free speech legacies are conservatives like Ann Coulter and Rush Limbaugh. And it's weird that most liberals who seek to ban them from media appearances and NFL team ownership can't see that. It's that mission to have a rigorous, no-holds-barred debate that made me a central part of this election cycle. Whether people read the Huffington Post on the left or my big sites on the right, everyone is now disillusioned about the media. Nobody is fooled into believing that most reporters are objective, straight-down-the-middle truth seekers. That means there's a greater transparency in the media. It doesn't mean that it's a calmer media. It doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of tumult and chaos out there, but I don't think our founding fathers would have considered a political Prozac-addicted electorate to be the ideal. I find it ironic that the same mainstream media that in 1992 lamented that my Generation X was not sufficiently engaged in politics are now upset that we are and have created new media and social media, transforming them into a highly aggressive, deeply democratic, and rough-and-tumble environment that is now putting those former critics and overlords in the mainstream media into the unemployment line. Election Night Revelation. When I was asked by ABC News to appear as a participant in its election night coverage, I at first considered the invitation a tacit acknowledgement that even a bastion of the mainstream media had heeded our message. With big journalism editor Dana Lash in ABC's New York studio with George Stephanopoulos and Diane Sawyer, and me set to appear via satellite from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism in Arizona before an audience of students, I thought, maybe there is some progress. The invitation had been, in many ways, righteously ironic. My primary critics had to recognize that the Tea Party they had denigrated consistently for 2 years had paved the way for massive political change, and the Tea Party's primary journalistic defender and the publisher of some of the biggest stories of that election cycle had to realize the benefit of asking me to be part of their election night coverage. So, perhaps naively, I accepted the invitation and considered it to be a done deal. It wasn't. After accepting the invitation from ABC News, we posted an innocuous article at Big Journalism promoting the ABC News coverage that would feature Dana and me. In essence, we were simply asking our millions of readers to watch ABC. Some would call that free advertising. Within hours, the organized left went after me and ABC with a meat cleaver. I found myself under the same level of organized attack that I had faced when the Shirley Sherrod incident occurred. Speaking of which, you may have noticed that I don't discuss the Sherrod incident in this audiobook. You probably know that Sherrod has threatened in the media to sue me. I can say this. There's a hell of a lot more to the Sherrod story than you've heard to this point. Stay tuned. Both the organized left's reaction to the Sherrod incident and their reaction to the ABC News story were retribution for my role in taking down Acorn and other sacred cows of the left. I had warned James O'Keefe and Hannah Giles that we would forever be marked targets. But knowing you're going to be hit doesn't take away from the sensation of being clobbered with a sucker punch. Less than 2 days after the invitation and less than 12 hours after the post announcing my participation in the broadcast, the organized left, led by my pals at Media Matters, colorofchange.org, Van Jones, Credo, a progressive phone company that sends a portion of one's bill to left-wing causes, Daily Kos, Talking Points Memo, and my beautiful red-headed Frankenstein, the Huffington Post, assaulted ABC with at least 125,000 signatures and over 2,000 phone calls. By the time I woke up the next morning, a Saturday, there was already a hit piece in the Washington Post with an inside unnamed source at ABC claiming that there was outrage inside the network's newsroom over the producers picking me in the first place. This blindsided a good portion of the team here, the source reportedly told Greg Sargent of the Post. And not in a good way. The second insult-to-injury capitulation to the organized left was a concurrent statement by ABC News' David Ford, a PR flack to Media Matters. Ford stated, Breitbart will be one of many voices on our air, including Bill Adair of PolitiFact. If Andrew Breitbart says something that is incorrect, we have other voices to call him on it. Upon reading it, I thought, how naive that I accepted this invitation. How naive that I thought that ABC News would stand by its invitation and that the producer responsible for that invitation would act like a man and defend his pick. It got worse. Andrew Morse, the producer of the event for ABC, without even reaching out to me, issued a statement from ABC News that was described by the UK Guardian in accurate terms. Breitbart claims he'll be appearing as an analyst, but a statement from ABC distances the network from him with comical vigor. Morse's statement explained that I was not an ABC News consultant, not in any way affiliated with ABC News, not being paid by ABC News. He has not been asked to analyze the results of the election for ABC News. Mr. Breitbart will not be a part of the ABC News broadcast coverage. He has been invited as one of several guests. Never mind that I never said anything to the contrary, but obviously, Morse had his job to preserve. It was a line-by-line distancing and diminishing of my role in the event as a means to placate the left's desire for blood. I saw that my fate was sealed by looking to, of all people, former Clinton hit job artist turned objective anchor George Stephanopoulos, who tweeted Breitbart not on ABC network broadcast. Ironically, my first memory of Stephanopoulos in conjunction with ABC News was in June 1996, when, while working in the Clinton White House, he threatened punitive action against the network that would later employ him to unbook as a guest a former FBI agent named Gary Aldrich, who reported wrongdoing at the Clinton White House. It still boggles the mind that Clinton's media hatchet man was soon thereafter rewarded with an anchor job and the mainstream media seal of objectivity. But the saga wasn't done yet. I knew the ABC News brass had calculated that if they threw me under the bus completely, they risked the political right and Tea Party attacking ABC News for capitulating to the totalitarian left. So ABC News created an artificial wall, a digital Elba, if you will, where I would be exiled. They now said I would be participating only in an online forum, and, most egregiously, they lied that had been the understanding from the very beginning. Jeffrey Schneider, a high-level ABC News PR flack, issued this statement. Mr. Breitbart exaggerated the role he would play on his blog. We immediately made it clear that was never the role he was supposed to play. He had been invited to be part of our digital town hall, and that is still the role. Every one of these acts by ABC News came in reaction to the left's push to get me kicked off the air. Every one of these acts was unilateral, without anybody from ABC News contacting me. They were throwing their invitee under the bus, and they were doing so in a most cruel fashion. What was worse, they were calling me out as a liar. They were giving the anti-free speech forces of the left everything they wanted. So I called Andrew Morse, whose entire attitude was narcissistic in the extreme. He simply couldn't believe that he was under such an assault by the organized left. I sympathized with him for a while. Then I said, "Don't you understand how you're being used right now by the organized left? Don't you understand how they want me to lash back at ABC News so that it will confirm for them that I was a wrong and hostile choice in the first place?" I told him that I am very methodical in how I interrelate with the mainstream media, that I utilize a carrots and sticks approach. When you lie and you destroy, I fight back hard, but when you make the right moves, I reciprocate in kind. I told Morse that I wanted to give ABC every opportunity to walk back their provably false allegation that I exaggerated my role. In fact, I held off responding publicly for well over a day in order to give them time to do so. Meanwhile, ABC reiterated they wanted me in Phoenix. "Oh, I'll be in Phoenix, all right," I said, "because the ball is now in your court. All I have done is accepted your invitation and told my readers to watch ABC News on election night. Since then, you've done everything wrong, including lying, which confirms everything that my readers perceive about network news and the mainstream media. But," I continued, "I am going to put up the email that you sent me, which confirms the invitation and clearly states that I am telling the truth and ABC News is lying." ABC News's answer, by way of Morse, "Do what you have to do." On Sunday night, I posted that email. Here it is. Andrew, so great speaking with you, and I cannot thank you enough for joining us in Arizona on election night. We truly appreciate it. New York is booking your travel right now and want to make sure your name on your ID reads Andrew Breitbart. I really look forward to meeting you and would love to take you out to lunch or dinner before our election coverage. See below about ABC News's coverage on election night. Cheers, and we'll see you soon. From unnamed producer at ABC News. ABC News is conducting a live event from Phoenix, Arizona for our election night special on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2010. I am looking for political figures and newsmakers to appear in our town hall-style panel. ABC News is providing live coverage of the midterm elections hosted by Diane Sawyer and George Stephanopoulos in New York and correspondents across the country. ABC News has partnered with Facebook and the Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University to live stream the entire event on abcnews.com, ABC News Now, and Facebook. The town hall is hosted by ABC correspondent David Muir and Randy Zuckerberg from Facebook, as well as an ASU student leader. The audience will consist of 150 students equipped with laptops and iPads who will participate in online political conversations. The issues include healthcare, the economy, immigration, terrorism, and the environment. We have panelists who will contribute to these conversations remotely from Washington, D.C., New York, and Los Angeles, California. This program will broadcast on the ABC television network, abcnews.com, ABC News Now, and ABC News Radio. The show will be live on the web and ABC News Now, as well as on the network from 4 p.m. till 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We would love for you to be a part of our program, and please let us know what we can do to accommodate your needs. I am booking the guests for the event and will be in Phoenix starting Thursday, October 28th. Feel free to email me back or call me at the following number with any questions. Thanks so much. Unnamed producer, ABC News. After releasing the email, on Monday, Jeffrey Schneider reiterated to my business partner that ABC wanted me to come to Phoenix. I spoke again with the producers at ABC News, who also told me that they wanted to meet Monday night for dinner in Phoenix. Accordingly, I flew to Phoenix on Monday night to be part of ABC's election night coverage, in whatever capacity they should so choose. I knew they wanted me to drop out, but I was not going to give them the easy way out. At about the time the producers were supposed to meet me for dinner on Monday night, I received a text from Morse saying that he was too busy preparing for the election coverage to attend dinner, and that they would be in touch early the next day. The next morning, I called and texted almost continuously asking where I should be, how I should dress, what topics would be discussed. No response. For 4.5 hours. At around 12:30 p.m., 3:30 p.m. on the East Coast, just as I was supposed to leave for the event, at this point all news coverage around the country, including my own website, was all election results all the time. Morse sent me an email disinviting me. To add insult to injury yet again, after picking at a scab that had been dashed with salt, ABC simultaneously sent the disinvitation to the left-wing media sites that had demanded I not participate on election night. They would revel in their victory as I packed to go back to L.A., where at least now I could vote. To make matters worse, I was away from my office desk where I would be of best use on election night. ABC broke the news when those who would care were least interested in blowing up a minor media scandal, and when the left needed a victory, any victory it could get, on what they knew was going to be a disaster of an election night for them. I was the left's Pyrrhic victory on election night 2010. I had been played. But it was worth it. It was fun. Being the media is fun. Telling the truth is fun. Having an effect on the election cycle is fun. Getting into world-class battles with brand-name media players is fun. When you have the truth on your side and the American people behind you, it's fun. In hindsight, I wouldn't change a thing. In 2 short years, we were not just building successful, impactful websites, but changing the way Americans read, consume, and create media. Fun, fun, fun. What's next? I've already said that election 2010 was less about November 2nd than it was about November 3rd and beyond. For me, 2011 is going to be a recommitment toward a righteous attempt to level the playing field in the media. 2011 is going to be less about holding Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid accountable than it's going to be about holding George Stephanopoulos, Andrew Morse, ABC News, and the rest of the mainstream media accountable. It's going to be about holding accountable the president of NPR, who capitulated to the exact same forces who attacked me when she canned Juan Williams and attacked his character in the process. It's going to be about holding George Soros and his Hungarian nut squat squad at Media Matters accountable. It's going to be about holding Arianna Huffington and Christiane Amanpour and Contessa Brewer and Katie Couric and Pinch Sulzberger accountable. I am optimistic that the Tea Party movement is reflective of a greater American sentiment that needs to try at least to save what is good and decent about the American experience. Again, it is a cultural battle. And while they cling to their media guns and their politically correct religion, truth will be our weapon. It's a long war, I know. I've lost friends. I have the scars. My wife married an almost inappropriately always light-hearted guy 14 years ago. Now she wakes up next to a firebrand who is one of the most polarizing figures in the country. But I have also met the America that was rendered silent by the media and is now shaking itself to life again. These are the years that we will look back on and question whether we did enough for our country and for our children. That's why I'm so determined, so pissed, so righteously indignant. Excuse me while I save the world.